Hey guys, it's Nick from Nicholas Russell Consulting. In this video, I'm going to show you how you can migrate specific content across contentful environments in a safe and repeatable way with my CLI tool. I originally built an early version of this tool for internal use at one of the firms I worked with, where it was trusted to handle content migrations and backups for spaces with over 1,000 pages. After seeing how much time and stress it saved the team, I decided to iterate on it and release a public version through NPM. When you're migrating and managing content generally on a live site, it's crucial that your process is scalable. You want it to be safe, deterministic, and easily repeatable so that anybody on your team could carry it out without issues. And that's exactly what this tool helps ensure. It streamlines the most common and risky content operations you'll face when working with Contentful on a headless site, and it's 100% free. To download the tool, you're going to want to open up a terminal and run this command. This will download my CLI tool on your machine globally. Once it's installed, make sure you're in a clean working directory and run the command Contentful Utility Suite. The first thing you'll be prompted to do is create a config for your space. You should give your space a name, then enter the space ID for the space you're managing, which you can find here. After that, enter a valid management token. If you don't have one or don't know what that is, you can get one by clicking the gear icon here, then clicking CMA tokens and clicking create personal access token. Once you have that copied down, enter it in the CLI tool. Finally, you'll want to enter your content delivery token. You can find these by clicking the gear icon again and then clicking API keys. You'll want to create a new one or use an existing, then copy the value in the content delivery API-access tokens field. Also make sure below that it has access to all your environments and aliases. When troubleshooting issues with the CLI tool, I've seen that not having proper permissions for your API keys is the cause of the error 99% of the time. Once you've entered all that information in the CLI tool, you should confirm it, and then the CLI tool will check to make sure your configuration is valid. If you get a green message, that means it was successful. If you need to update or change your config, you can do it through the CLI tool with the update config command, or you can manually edit the global config at the following paths for Windows, Mac, and Linux. Now that we're in the CLI tool, we have a few options to choose from to complete certain tasks. The first option we'll be looking at is the export entire environment option. This option is going to allow us to fully back up a contentful environment. Before doing any importing, whether full imports or selected content, it's important to first back up the environment we'll be working with so that we can always revert our changes. To export an environment, simply select the export entire environment option, then select your space and the environment you'd like to export. You'll be asked whether you want to download assets. If you're only exporting content across environments, you don't need to download assets. You'll only need to download assets if you're planning to re-import your backups to different spaces. If you'll only ever be importing your backups into other environments of the same space, you don't need to download your assets. Downloading and re-uploading assets can take a long time and dramatically increase the size of your backups, especially if you have a ton of assets. For that reason, I recommend only exporting your assets if you strictly need to. Once your export finishes, you'll find the resultant file in the output/exports directory, and it will be named all content from your space ID dash the environment or alias you chose to export as a JSON file. If you're using this guide just to back up or restore an environment, you can use the import environment from JSON command to overwrite any existing environment with your saved backup. Just select the target space, the target environment, and the tool will restore all entries, assets, and content types automatically. This will overwrite content in the target environment, but it won't delete any existing entries or assets unless you explicitly choose to wipe the environment first. If you're trying to restore a true backup, I recommend wiping the environment before importing by checking yes to this option. Also, I want to reiterate, if you're importing a backup across spaces, remember that that backup must include its assets files. So when you create that backup, make sure you say yes to the download assets option. Now that we've covered creating and restoring from backups, we're ready to use the CLI tool to export specific content from your source environment to your target environment. For this, we'll use the migrate selected content command. In this video, I'll just show you the basic usage of the command, but if you're looking for my full content promotion workflow with or without code changes and how to do it safely with minimal downtime, check the description for links to my step-by-step guide and other resources. I've written a Medium article giving a step-by-step guide for content promotions, and I have a paid Contentful plus Next.js Starter Kit that features an even more in-depth step-by-step guide on migration, along with full boilerplate and documentation for enterprise-level Next.js Contentful projects. If you're struggling with other challenges like block rendering, type generation, localization, and SEO, I definitely recommend you check that out. Getting back to the guide, many times we want to import only specific entries and assets across environments as opposed to a complete overwrite. The general strategy for most companies is to have a sandbox and a production environment. The production environment is the content your end user sees on your site, and the sandbox environment is the content your developers and content editors make and preview changes in. To promote specific content from sandbox to production, or generally move content from any source environment to any target environment, we're going to use the, again, migrate selected content command. Contentful offers the Contentful CLI npm package to carry out these types of selected imports and exports. My tool abstracts that library to provide a declarative interface that streamlines the process so you don't have to repetitively construct complicated queries each time you need to import or export content. Before we execute the migrate selected content command, we're going to want to create a file in the root of our working directory called imports.json. This file is going to be the declarative interface with which you can tell the CLI tool what specific content you want to export from your source environment into your target environment. At this point, this command only supports migrating content across environments. Right now, it cannot migrate content across spaces. In the imports.json file in the root of the working directory, you'll create an array of entry IDs of the content you'd like to migrate. The convenient thing about the imports.json file is that it only needs to contain the top level entry IDs for the content you're migrating. For example, if you're migrating a page entry that contains nested references, the CLI tool will automatically find and include all related child entries and assets. That means your imports.json file only needs to list the top level entry IDs. The tool takes care of the rest. To demonstrate, I'm going to be changing a few of the answers in my FAQ to lorem on my marketing site. My FAQ is an instance of my accordion content type. I'll also be changing the image and body of this section, which is an instance of my banner content type. So I'm going to make those changes on my development environment, which we'll be using as the source of the migration, and when I'm done making those changes, we can preview them on local. Then I'm going to add the entry ID of my banner and FAQ in the imports.json array, like so, reiterating that I don't need the entry IDs of the individual FAQ answers or any of the other child references because they'll be automatically updated. One important warning before we continue, you never want to manually duplicate content from one environment to another. When you manually recreate or duplicate an entry in a different environment, it gets a new entry ID, which breaks the connection between environments. The migration scripts we're running rely on matching entry IDs between the source and target environments in order to update or overwrite existing content. If the entry ID is different, the tool won't recognize it as the same content. It will either skip it or create a duplicate depending on the circumstances. If you're watching this video, it's very possible that you already have manually duplicated content across environments. So before running the migrate selected content command, you're going to need to normalize your environments. So this guide really isn't going to be useful to you until you can normalize your environment. So there's going to be two ways you can do that. One option is to manually move any content you want to keep from the environment you're discarding into the one you want to preserve. Once that's done, you can delete the old environment and clone the preserved one to create a clean baseline. The other option is to promote the environment with the correct content to become your new source of truth, then clone from that as needed. Either way, the goal is to make sure that all entries have consistent IDs across your environments if they're meant to represent the same content. And that's what I would call normalizing. And once your environments are normalized, that's when you can start to use this guide to migrate targeted content from one environment to the other. Once your environments are properly normalized, you're ready to run the migrate selected content command. Just make sure your imports.json file is in the root of your working directory with the entry IDs you want to migrate, then select the command to get started. You'll then want to choose your space and pick your source and target environments. Note that you can either choose environments or aliases here. I've set up my development alias for this tutorial to point to the environment I changed content in, and I pointed my stage alias to an environment called sandbox, which is a throwaway environment I created for this tutorial. After selecting your environments, you'll be asked whether you want to automatically merge content types between them. The Collide tool uses Contentful's Merge app to handle this, so you have to make sure it's installed in your space. You can find it by going to Apps, Marketplace, and searching for Merge and clicking Install. Keep in mind that merging content types often goes hand in hand with code changes. If your app doesn't know about the new fields or types, it won't be able to use them. In this example, I'll just add a simple test field to the accordion content type just to demonstrate how the merge process works. Once ready, I'll choose Continue Normally here, and we'll print a .diff file showing the differences between the content types in your source and target environments. This will not execute the merge. It's only going to create a .diff file showing you the changes the merge would make to your content types. Once the diff file is created, you can find it in outputs/diff in your working directory. Open it and review the changes to confirm they match the content type updates you expect. In this case, we can see the is test field is listed as added, which means it will be added into the target environment. Once you confirm that the diff file is what you'd expect, you can approve it in the Collide tool and continue on. If the diff doesn't look right, don't proceed. The changes in that file will overwrite the content types in your target environment. Instead, go back and make the necessary adjustments directly in your source environment's content model. Once your source environment reflects the correct structure, you can rerun the diff process to generate an updated file. Only move forward with the merge when the diff accurately represents the changes you want to apply. If you don't want to merge content types, you can just skip this step with the Collide tool. In the next step, the Collide tool will ask you to confirm the file that contains your imports. If your imports.json file is in the root of your working directory, you should only need to press enter to confirm. The tool defaults to that imports.json file name. This step won't import your content just yet. It will generate an export file called selected exports in the output/exports directory. Once that file is created, the Collide tool will ask you to confirm if you want to import it into your target environment. Now if I check my site's stage domain, which is pointed to the target environment, I should see the content changes reflected. Sometimes it takes a moment to update, and if it doesn't show after a long period of time, it's likely due to caching. And after we confirm, that means the migration is complete. If you want to learn more about promoting content and code together, rolling back with aliases, or managing cache effectively in Next.js, check out the links in the description. And if you'd like more free tutorials like this, let me know in the comments. Don't forget to like the video so others can find it as well. Thank you.